Well, here we are once again. Time for the Tinney Family Reunion. It's November the 12th, 2016. My, how time flies. Seemed like it had been over a year ago since I was out here. It was November 2015. And we was having the Tinney Reunion in the Family Life Center at Tinney Chapel Church, which is right over here. It's a good day today. Beautiful sunshine. Nice and cool, not cold, not hot. People are coming and people have already got here to enjoy one another once again. Some for the first time, some for the last time. And this will be a good day. And we hope everybody has a joyous time. The joy of the Lord is my strength. So we'll wait for others to get here and go inside anyway and see who all's here and make some video. Everybody's welcome. We love you. And again, reunion is in the Tinney Chapel Family Life Center. And here we are inside. People already reminiscing and enjoying the company.
Did you really? That means at least once.
Well, here we are again inside the Life Center with the people in the Tinney Reunion. And we got a few here, several. Getting close to eating time now. Santa Claus tree. Christmas tree.
would say the company, yeah. It's kind of a tradition. Looks like potato salad. It's hard.
And so we have Earl and UT making the best, boy and major in aerospace engineering. So there's three generations of mixed Aggie, Texas business that works for us. I make them out of her boys are growing along. I made them out of morning, but sugar.
My wife would love it if she was here. She definitely. I will, and I just like to make it. We may all show up next year.
Okay.
I don't know about that. You know, you probably eat 2 platefuls. And a good time was had all.
Driving down the road out there in the country, like what was that? Somebody had just hit a squirrel. They were laying on the ground, kicking the squirrel. She turned out of the road and turned around to go back and get that squirrel. But by the time she got there, one of her neighbors were picking it up. They almost had a fight in the street trying to get that squirrel. And he said, "That's my squirrel. I seen it Thursday, so I picked it up." And she said, "What are you going to do with it?" I'm gonna feed it to my alligator. Got an alligator living in the pond behind his house. Yeah. I'm good friends with his son. He was serious. He couldn't let that in that squirrel go.
when Ambrose died. Neither Tommy or I were born, of course, by then. We were, Dolly died in 1936, about a week after Tommy was born. And Dan Boyd, our father, died 18 months later, a year and a half later. So we were raised by, actually we had 3 mothers under the one roof. One of them was Dolly's sister, Maud Tinney, who married C.K. Cater. And our grandmother, who was Ambrose's second wife, Elizabeth Caroline Gamble Tinney. And she was still living in Ambrose's house when we were born. And in fact, Tommy was born in that house. I was born in the little rent house about a quarter of a mile north on what's now 312. And we were raised, and then in addition, Mama, or Elizabeth Tinney, our grandmother, we called her Ma and Mama. She she inherited a widow's portion of Ambrose's estate when he died in 1924, and we were living there. That's where Tommy was born. I was born near there, and we grew up there. And the other person living in that house was Laura Spann, who was our aunt, our grandmother's sister. So we had all 3 of those ladies, and all 3 of them functioned as mothers, you know. And you know, we were disciplined to some extent, and by all of them, all 3 of them, and loved by all 3 of them. C.K. Cater, Maud's husband, Maud being Dolly's sister, functioned as our father. So we had the benefit of 3 mothers and 1 father, and I don't think either one of us ever felt like an orphan, although technically we were both orphans, you know, because we were raised by family, and they loved us a great deal, treated us like we were their own flesh and blood. Mama died in 1953, the year, in December of that year that I enrolled at Texas A&M. And then at that point, then the remaining land that our grandmother had inherited from Ambrose. Ambrose didn't leave a will, so his property was distributed according to the laws of descent of the state of Texas, and our grandmother didn't leave a will, so once again that land was distributed according to the laws of descent of the state of Texas. And there were so many heirs by that time, in 53, December 53, when she died, that everybody just said, you know, if you divided it up, your land would be about the size of this notebook. You know, each heir would have gotten about that much land probably. So everybody said sell the land and divide the money, which is, you know, what most people do in that kind of a situation. Except Maud had the foresight and the good sense to say, well, we would like, we being Maud, me, and Tommy, who had inherited shares from our mother. We'd like all 3 of our shares to be combined into one and deeded off from this land before you sell it. And we'd like to, whatever that comes to, you know, we'd like to that to be our place, our home place. And we'd build a house there. And so that's what happened. And you know, I was a freshman at A&M when that paperwork started. And I think Uncle Al Tinney was probably the one that did most of the, saw to most of the paperwork, probably with a good bit of help from people like Uncle John Tinney and maybe Uncle Ed Tinney. I'm not sure how many helped him out, but I think Uncle Al was always kind of in charge of stuff like that. And they got, and So I'm a freshman at A&M when this happens. I graduated in 1957, and I go to work for the Star Telegram right out of A&M, Fort Worth Star Telegram. And it's just about that time that all of the paperwork has been accomplished. And Maud and Kay buy a little house and move it on to the third, I think it was 33.5 acres, maybe 33 1/3 acres that our 3 parts came to. And that's over there about, some of you know exactly where it is, but if you go this road, 4620 to 312, turn north, it would be about at most a half a mile, maybe a quarter of a mile, up on the left there. My house now is on part of that land, and it says Boyd on the mailbox, so if you're driving up that way and you see red letters on the mailbox, Boyd, that means my house is on part of that property that became jointly owned by Maud and me and Tommy. And they lived there until they died in the 80s. And Tommy at one time had a house, had built a house on that property. And several years later, when I retired from Farm Journal, I built a house there. And 2 of Tommy's children, Robin Boyd Cherry, and Crystal Boyd Cook, also have houses on that property as well, right now as we speak. So that's what's happened to our side of the family. Tommy went to Dallas and became the top salesman for Fuller Brush Company for a good number of years. And then he eventually was he began to teach other Fuller Brush salesmen how to sell Fuller Brushes and that sort of thing. And I think he finally got burned out maybe on selling. For whatever happened, he stopped doing that and bought a service station over in Richardson, Texas. That was on, like if you're on 75 and you know where Campbell Road is, which is between Plano and, well, you know, if you know where Beltline Road is in Richardson, there was a road, Campbell Road was in between Plano and Beltline Road. And then if you took that Campbell Road and headed west, you came to Nantucket, a street called Nantucket. Well, Tommy had Boyd's Texaco there for a number of years. In fact, when I moved back to Texas in '73, he still had it, and I became one of his better customers. I had everything done there, I think, while he still had it. And sometime in the '70s, Tommy decided to move back to Winnsboro. And he did, you know, and what he did was got a job with delivering bread. I think it was Maynard. Is it Maynard bread?
Sunbeam.
Sunbeam bread. And he had a regular route in which he dropped it off at businesses in the Winnsboro and surrounding areas. And his whole idea of getting that job was so that he could find a business that he could buy, because his ultimate goal was to be in business for himself, which is kind of what he'd always done. He's got the entrepreneur gene. And he found one of his customers was a place called Hickory Ridge Smokehouse. And I think a guy named Martin, what was his name? Marvin Morrison, who owned it at that time. And he was going through some trials of life at the time and was wanting to get out of that business, wanting to sell it. I don't think it had been put up publicly for sale. Tommy found out about it, and he asked him a few questions, I think, about the business. And Tommy realized that it would be a good business, and he said, well, I'll tell you what, Mr. Morrison, if I buy your business, you're wanting to sell it, suppose I buy it, would you stay on long enough to teach me how to run a business like this? And Mr. Morrison said, yeah. And so that's how Tommy became the owner of the Hickory Ridge Smokehouse for about 21 years. And during that 21 years that he owned it, all of his children grew up working in that business. You know, they got good business training. They got stay together as family. And of course, Tommy hired a lot of other young people, high school and that age, helped out in Hickory Ridge during those years. Tommy always had a really varied menu, and he had the best French fries in Wood County, I think.
And the best hamburger.
Best hamburgers too, right?
Barbecue.
Everything he had was really, you know, his whole concept was good food at reasonable prices and friendly atmosphere. And he had a lot of people still wonder why we don't still have a Hickory Ridge Smokehouse. Well, Tommy eventually got probably burned out on that, I suspect, you know, because he kept it neat and clean, you know, and you know, anytime he went in there, even if it was downtime, he was working, you know, he was cleaning tables and sweeping, and you know, it was always spotless, as well as good food and all that. So that kind of brings you up to date on Dolly. So I want to ask Sue, you want me to, I don't know if I can bring this over there or not. Can you make it over here, Sue? She's going to tell us about Tom Tinney, what's happened in the Tom Tinney family.
Need a chair to sit in?
Talk about it. You need to.
Okay, I'm not gonna be able to tell you all these dates and stuff, but, my daddy, Frank Love Tinney, married Lois Rogers, and from that union, they had 3 daughters. My oldest sister died when she was in grade school. My younger sister Jackie lives in Irving, Texas. She has 3 children. And I have to think about how many grandkids.
Bunch.
Anyway, then of course I'm married, my husband's here.
Hold up your hand, Jack.
We
Hold up your hand. There's Sue's husband.
we have 2 sons, 5 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. But as far as my father and mother, I was born in Winnsboro. And I guess Jackie was too. I lost my thought. But anyway, they eventually, when I was in about the 4th grade, moved to the Dallas area, and my dad worked for the Railroad Express for many years. And then they moved back to Winnsboro. Gosh, I don't know when that was, but anyway, we now, my husband and I, live on the property that my mother and dad both lived on. My sister still lives in Irving. I'm sorry she couldn't be here. I'd make her do this. What else do I want to?
No, Bobby?
What else do I need to
Well, I don't know, just whatever comes to mind.
After he moved back the first time, then y'all moved back to Dallas and he went to work for Sears.
do? Yeah, that's right, that's right.
And then moved back when he retired.
Yeah.
He was a Santa for a year.
Daddy worked for Sears and Roebuck for many years, and he was Santa Claus at the Ross Avenue store for a number of years. And I know we took our oldest son to sit on Santa's knee, and he knew who he was. So we didn't fool him a bit. But anyway, I guess he's Doug's picture. Our youngest son also sat on Santa's knee.
Well, what are those kids of y'all's doing?
Well, like I said, we have two sons. One of them is works for Raytheon in the logistics department. Our other son is he's an engineer. He also now is working for a company that makes guidance systems for missiles in Dallas. He's planning on retiring in a couple of years. His wife is a school teacher. She's planning on retiring in December. They have 5 children. 2 is adopted. They have 4 boys and a girl, and the girl and her husband are missionaries in China. He has sent all of those kids to college, and they're all great kids. They have a set of twin boys. One of the boys is in the music field. He works as a manager for the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. The other one is a scientist in Illinois. They have 2 little girls. The one in San Francisco is not married. The granddaughter that's a missionary in China has a little baby, 3 months old, and they're back over there. She came to Texas this summer to have the baby. Said it was going to be a Texan. She wouldn't let it be born over there. But anyway, Jackie's kids, she has 2 sons and a daughter. One of her sons is a policeman for the Irving Police Department. And I'm not sure what the others do, but they're all, we have a great family. And we're glad to see everybody today.
Thank you, sir. Sue Tinney Brown. I'll say that when Tommy and I were growing up, before they moved to Dallas, they just lived less than a quarter of a mile. They lived in the rent house that I was born in. And so we got to see a lot of them. We were going to Beth, same way. Beth's family lived in that house for a while. Let's see, the other notebook that we have is the Eva Tinney notebook. Who's the spokesman, Jerry? You or Mike? Or this is, I think even Uncle JJ called her Eva. Eva Tinney, another one of Ambrose's children. We get a report from Jerry Mills, who has recently moved since the last reunion, I think, to College Station, where he went to school, and where Mike went to school, and where Jim Frank, his father, went to school and taught
Okay, Eva Mills. Of course, Eva Mills was in the second bunch of, I believe you correct me, she's in the second bunch of, the second wives. First wife, okay. Okay, and Eve met J.J. Mills, and they lived over here on the hill to the west of the church. And that's where J.J. had his dairy farm from the 40s to the middle 60s. They had 3 kids. They had Jim Frank. In 21, he was born. And in about 38, he hitchhiked to Texas A&M, and he went on his career from there. They also had Edith. I think Edith was second, and then Cecil was third. And some of y'all know Edith and Cecil, and they lived their lives here and have since died. Of course, our dad has died too. So that's that generation. But what else? But Jim Frank, the oldest child, the only one that ventured away from the farm or the dairy farm, and about 17 years old, he went to A&M, got a bachelor's degree in 43. We found that documented here. And then he went off to war. We married my mom first, went off to war to the South Pacific, and was a PT boat captain, and was there till 46. So he finished the war off. And he never really talked much about the war at all, but he did get one of the medals. I think it's called, I don't know which one, I don't want to say be wrong, but he got a pretty distinguished medal for his his action in the war. So, you know, Edith and Cecil had no kids, did not marry. So Jim Frank and his new wife, Henry Jean, married in 43, had 4 boys. Had Jim Frank, and had John Jarrod, and had Michael David, and had Jerry Ray, all born in the 40s and 50s. The oldest boy got a degree in engineering, moved to Longview with his wife, and he died in 85 of an aneurysm. Of course, he left 2 kids, and now they're in San Antonio, in California, with kids of their own, so it continues. That was the oldest, Jim Frank. The next, John Jarrod, he died at birth and is buried in Longview. And then the doctors figured out she had an early birth with John Jarrod. My mom did, so they tweaked her medications, got that straightened out, and then Mike and I were born on term, and goes on from there. Now Mike married. Mike went to A&M, married, and had 4 kids. Now you get a bunch of names and there, and 3 of those are married. And I don't know if I want to go through all. Mike had Jennifer, Jennifer's married, had kids. Donovan's not married. And the next one was Brooke. She's married and has triplets in San Antonio, and they're a year and a half old, so they're busy. They didn't quite make it today, but the triplets turned 17 months, I guess, recently. So, and then then there was also after Brooke, there's Austin. Austin's here, and she lives the next county over.
Just hand Austin. She lives at what, Leesburg?
So she's come back to her roots.
My husband's from around here.
Yeah, from Leesburg. In fact, her husband's family has been in the mill business forever, and y'all know they've been around for 50 years. What's the name of your?
It's called East Texas Hardwoods now, but his dad, his last name is Hollenquest.
Hollenquest. I think Mickey's done business with Hollenquest over the years, or knows of the Hollenquest mill. So, she's married into the Hollenquest dynasty in Leesburg. But anyway, and then I married a young lady from College Station. You know, we're all, of course, Jim Frank lived in College Station the rest of his life. once he left Winnsboro in '39, he never left College Station. Except for the war. But anyway, then I was the last to be born from Jim Frank and Henry Jean. I have 4 kids. They're all happy. They're all married and living somewhere else and doing good. So
Wow.
So praise the Lord on that. That's kind of rough, but what was I going to say? You know, right now, Michael Davis still has land in Winnsboro. His land's on the back side of Herschel's land. Herschel Chaddick, that passed away this last year, and I think they just recently sold that land. That's what I've heard. Chaddick's land sold, and but Mike's land is on the back side that hits the next county road south here. So besides that, you know, our land that JJ had here, over here on the hill, is sold to Lance Tinney. Is any of Lance's family here? I'm not sure what Tinney. Roger Tinney, Lance Tinney. I'm not sure what.
There's another brother, Chance.
Chance Tinney.
Chance and
Okay.
Chance. They're from the Dave Tinney Street.
Okay. And that's one thing I wanted, since I had the mic, I want to profess it. You know, I sold this land over here, but I sold it to Tinney. I kept it in the family. So, and I think it's important to keep it in the family. So, and I don't know what to say, except we love coming in here and visiting on Mike's place. So we see Mickey. When I come in town, I call Mickey. I call his mom, and I go hang out with them. So they always give me a good time.
You got a home here.
I got a home here. So thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. I'll just say that Jim Frank, one of the tales, you know, Jim Frank left for A&M before I was big enough to really know much about him. He ran around some with Beth's 2 brothers, Joe Bob Bellamy and Wallace Bellamy, you know, but they were much older than me, so I was out of their league. They were out of my league, I should say. But I have heard tales told about something, a daredevil thing that Jim Frank did. You know, I didn't see this, but I'm told by a first-hand witness who was C.K. Cater, a guy that functioned as my father all of my life, really. He told me that one time, there on the Tinney old home place where Tommy and I grew up, that they had this cactus plant in a bucket, and that cactus plant, by the way, I had that for a while after the Tinney farm was sold. It eventually died. I don't know what went wrong with it, but that, you know, I thought a cactus really never did die, but this one did eventually. But you know, it was a challenging cactus. You looked at it, you know, you didn't want to get too close to it because of the stickers. But apparently the boys.
You didn't water it.
Say again?
He didn't water it?
You forgot to water it.
Maybe. I don't know what I did wrong. But I regretted the loss of that cactus. But the thing that I was going to, the daredevil thing that Jim Frank did, well, according to Kay, was that they dared some of them, and I think Joe Bob and Wallace were there too. And I don't know how many of them did it, but they dared them to sit down on this cactus, you know, sit down on the cactus. And supposedly they were supposed to take down their breeches before they sat down, you know. And Jim Frank actually did it and survived to fight the Japanese in the South Pacific. You know, he was apparently a daredevil type. And I'll also say that
Division. I picture my head.
maybe that, you know, that we were talking earlier about what was it that caused Jim Frank to choose A&M, you know, to go to. Well, I think it was Mike said ag. You know, A&M has always been, I guess, the preeminent quintessential agriculture school in Texas. Also, you know, the same thing for engineering and all that. We don't really know. Nobody really has any idea what it was. We all agree, talking about it, that Jim Frank probably realized early on that he didn't want to be on that dairy farm all of his life. You know, because this was before grade A dairies were in this area and all that. And there was a whole, and they milked entirely by hand. They had a large number of cows. They didn't have milking machines, you know. And you can imagine the amount of work, you know, milking twice a day and then cleaning up and all that. So we just kind of assumed that Jim Frank decided at age 17, or what Jerry said, that he hitchhiked to A&M and he only came back to visit on occasion. I'll just say about his war. You said he didn't talk much about the war, but he did. You know, he got a distinguished citation of some kind. I know a little about that. The only reason I do is when I was a boy, both Uncle Bill Tinney and Aunt Lizzie had in their house a newspaper story, and Aunt Eva had the same one in her house, and Uncle JJ. And there was a newspaper story. I don't know what paper it was in, you know, because they didn't, at the time, they didn't cut it so that you could see where it came from. I don't know whether it was in the Winnsboro paper or some other paper. But there was this long news story about a particular place where there's a time in the Pacific where this PT boat that Jim Frank was captaining was approached by some Japanese destroyers. And the only thing I remember in reading that story, you know, I was a young boy when I saw that, but I do remember the ending of it. It said that when the PT boat encountered the Japanese destroyers, Mills went to work with whatever the guns they had on those PT boats, and when Mills was finished, the destroyers just weren't there anymore. So he apparently sank some Japanese destroyers. I suspect that's the medal, probably some kind of distinguished combat.
They had 4 torpedoes on each PT boat.
4 torpedoes. So that would have been torpedoes that he was shooting. Thank you for that, Dave. I had no idea. I thought maybe it was some kind of machine gun.
No, well, they had 2 machine guns and 4 torpedoes.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to know that, because this was it was a huge story, and Jim Frank in this community was regarded as a war hero. Okay, now we're ready for, let's see, those are the only ones that held up their hands. Corinne, did you have one of the notebooks?
I've got albums back here.
Which one?
Her own albums. I have 2 or 3 albums back here.
Okay. Well, do you want to report on the Ed Tinney line?
Yes. Please.
You want to give us a report on the Ed Tinney line?
Well,
Yeah. We need to have you on the.
do I have to get up there?
Well, if you want to be on the DVD, we'd like for you to be heard well.
Can you sit up there and do it? Can you sit up there?
Mickey, where you're going?
We can get you a chair here and lower the mic.
There you go.
Can I ask a question in the meantime?
Yeah. Ivanelle's got a question.
I'll get it, let you sit down, then I'll get it secured for you.
You'll talk first.
In that case, I'll just sit down. Is that what you prefer?
Okay. Joanne and Susan have brought some pictures that they discovered after a 30-year rest in the garage, and have made it into an album by repairing the cover. But what I'm looking for is that there's a picture in here, Mary Frances Tinney, Bill Tinney, along with Newton relatives, and we would like to know what building they are standing in front of. So those of you who know this area well, I think it's too large to have been the little house where the Newtons lived at one time. And so would love some input from you. Another point, I brought with me a quilt, a friendship quilt from the 1930s, was in the possession of Lorraine Newton, and her daughter Joy sent it to me, and I brought it up here looking for someone who felt strongly about some of the names on it. I found that person. Beth Newkirk was thrilled to death when she saw her brother's names. She saw several people she recognized, and so either for a small donation in her honor or from her to the reunion group, it's going to go home with her because I saw how much she appreciated it. I think she may be our ranking Tinney descendant here. So anyway, another round of applause for her for that.
Well, see, is it on? Yeah. I called her on her birthday. I called her on her birthday and I said, "You're older than I am." She was 86. She was 86, and I won't be that until February. And then she'll get to do it to me. I don't know where to start. I guess I can from Ed went to World War I, and he had asked Valley to marry him before he left, and she said no, but I will when you get back. So in 1919 they married, but they wanted to, and they I don't know if they moved in the old house or what, but they chose not to start their family until they could afford it. So Donald was born in 27. They married in 1990. And guess what? What happened? The bottom fell out. I mean, the bottom fell out. So they were the first ones that had dry pea money to pay the doctor with, and that's the first money that he had gotten in a long time. Back during the Deep Depression. Well, then Valley had to have a surgery for a big tumor in her stomach, and then Donald had to go into the service right from high school. Then when he got back, he stopped by. He and my brother-in-law, Virgil Word. Well, they had come. Well, he was sick. So Donald and his date and Ray had come to see my sister, and they were sitting over there on the bed next to the door, and my curiosity got the best of me. So I moseyed in there in my little print dress, long blonde hair, blue eyes, and I saw Donald over there, and he saw me, and we dated for, well, let's see, that was I met him in about November or 1st of December. and he had gotten home about in September. So we married the last day of January in 1948. Then
That courtship, how long was that courtship?
a year and 2 months, 3 months, something like that. But I finished high school. I was a senior. I was a senior in high school. So I finished school, and we come up and built our little 2-room house. And then Elaine come, Mickey, Stephen, and Judy. So we have, I lost Donald in 2002, and we had been in business for 27 years over the, well, we had a dairy for 19 and a half years. And then we had the business with Donald head of it for 27 years, and then he died in 2002, and I took over for 3 years. And got a chance then to get off Monday. It's a story. But it's a love story. But anyway, I have 4 kids, 7 grandkids, and 11 greats.
Amen.
And life is good. Life is good. Mickey, do you want to say anything? You think I've said too much?
So, Corey, those houses that Ed built, Uncle Ed, Uncle Ed built some houses that are still around the neighborhood. Tell us about those houses he built, what year he built them, and where they are now. Those.
No, his sister, Aunt Lizzie, her house was built about the same time, but I don't know who built the houses.
I thought
Do you know who built the houses? Jordan, do you know who did? I don't know who did. But anyway, life is good.
Melanie was the designer of a bunch of them.
Okay,
I didn't hear that, what they said.
okay.
All his craftsmen,
Okay.
all kinds of here.
Uncle Ed didn't build those houses? Uncle Ed?
I don't think so.
No,
Okay.
I'm not sure.
but there were several houses that looked alike
Exactly.
about that time, about
Yeah,
20.
the one that my grandparents lived in, up here, still here. Now it's been moved over this hill.
Yeah,
That's
it's
one of
up
the
here.
houses.
Aunt Lizzie's house is up here.
Yes,
Yeah.
this house.
And on the little house, Cartwright community.
Oh, thank you.
And they moved it over there.
Wow.
And then, Lillian's house went somewhere. I'm not doing this for you.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're out of albums, but let's see. How about, I think, looks like we could have Doris. Do you want to give a report on the Floyd Tinney line? Or not too, okay. David, you want to talk about the Millie Tinney line?
Well, I don't have much to report.
If you come up here, we'll get you on the DVD.
We don't have any. We're out of tape.
Oh, you're done?
We're out of tape.
Lord bless him.
It only runs an hour, and that's usually enough. Oh, okay, thanks. That's all right.
Millie Welch's group is all separated and moved on every which way. And the only living mother sister is Bonnie. Used to be Byers. I can't remember what her name is now. And then she has one daughter, that Annette, that lives down in the Tyler area. And the rest of us are here, there, and yonder, and we don't keep up with each other anymore. So that's all I can report.
Tommy Barkley did all too. Is he still here? Is Tommy Bartley still here?
Glad you're going.
Okay, well, like I said, hold this DVD. I passed out DVDs so far to David Stewart, and I gave him Deanne's. He's going to give that to her. And David Welch has got his. Bobby, Sue Brown has got hers, and she's going to give Jackie Woodard hers. Jerry and Nancy got theirs. Corrine got hers. Paul and Doris got theirs. Mickey got his, and he's going to give Kevin his. Okay. Let's see. Harry, do you want to give a report? Let's see. I'm trying to remember which child you go date back to.
Sure. I'll figure it out on the way up.
Okay. Well, Harry Miller come all the way from California again to the reunion, and he's going to give us a report on his family.
Well, here we are again, November 11th, 2017. It's time for the Tinney Family Reunion. And here's another beautiful day that the Lord has made that we can take advantage of and enjoy ourselves at the reunion. Several people already here. And there's several inside, several cars. And it's looking good. Some people over here cleaning up the churchyard, raking the leaves. I don't know who they are, but I bet they are proud to be here working on the property that the Lord has made that we can use. Today is a great day, time for the family reunion. As I said, but this is also Veterans Day, November the 11th. And we are to remember all the ones that have served our country, that have lived and died for our country. And here we are inside, looking at some of the people that are enjoying each other's company and telling about what's going on and trying to hear what other people are saying.
I know how that goes.
I was guessing it had to do with Thanksgiving, family coming together and being
And we're in the food line. Everybody's getting something to eat.
We have a thing here about recipes, because I try to get a recipe, and she'll tell me about that, and then later she'll say, oh, and I forgot to do this, and oh, I forgot to do
You know
that.
the old saying, yes, cooks do that on purpose.
And she just makes it all, it's not written down anywhere.
And here we are at the Tinney Family Life Center. It's where we always have the Tinney Family Reunion, which is fitting and proper.
Thank you very much. And these are homegrown, no problem. All the
I love those spiral peanuts. With sugar cane.
Is that all the potatoes you broke? What? Is that all you broke? No. Made it? I brought some more. No, tomatoes. I'll let
You need some of this?
No, I got a plate full. Yeah.
You need some?
a big spoon.
Yeah.
You need some of this?
Got a plate. Thank you.
This is a sausage, and this is Please get a separate pen out there.
Reach over.
Yeah, get a little. I'll reach over and get some of this. Uh-oh. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, this is not the thing to wear, because I'm trying to slide in there.
Okay, here's the polo. I know, but I mean.
I know it's good.
Take it with you.
I reckon all of those are organized.
Can you take it with you?
You just don't realize how much me and Jean always enjoy. Yeah, we share it.
I'll trade you the good. I was afraid I wasn't taking it.
I have a deal of paper towel, a deal that you can cut it, I mean, that is cut,
Yeah.
you know, it's on my table.
That's the way I live. I don't want all that work you're doing.
That's deviled eggs, I think. I'm sorry?
I didn't want that work to go to waste, so I thought sure.
I'm sampling it to make sure that it's.
That it's okay? Meets your standards?
I don't think he has to.
Where do you live?
Well, for the past 15 years, I've been working for a cruise line in Hawaii.
Really?
Yeah, I hadn't maintained a home because I lived on the ship most of the time, or I was traveling. I was off, just exploring things.
What cruise line?
Norwegian,
Oh, yeah, I've been on.
the Pride of America, and the American flagships that sail in Hawaii.
Is that the one that has that big chair? Wild colors and.
No, or at least if they do, it's been in the past 2 years since
I went
I
on
left.
Norwegian. My wife has a travel company.
Yeah.
And we book people on cruise lines. She does all the time.
Well, I hope they have a good time when they go.
Yeah. We cruised to all the Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Russia, all of Europe.
I would love to do that. St. Petersburg.
Heidelberg, yeah, that's the best trip.
I bet it would be.
Now, Greece is good, and Italy's good, but just to see the Hermitage.
Right.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah, that was it. That was the intent. I think that was Catherine the Great, wasn't it? Who started that collection?
I went to the Louvre and I went to the Prado in Spain.
And it's nothing.
There's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, the Hermitage is like a city of
Let me just tell you, if you walk all through the Hermitage,
yeah,
it would be 13 and a half miles.
Yeah. I've seen documentaries on it, so I
And
know.
by the time you get through there, they will have changed part of it.
Right.
They keep
So you
rotating.
never have to stop.
Yeah. Go ahead and explain.
Everybody through here? Everybody been through?
I think they have.
Okay. Then I'll,
Finish off what's left.
yeah. I am quite capable of doing that. Oh, I love these beans. Beans and onions. Gotta have that sausage. That's the best part of it, and a little bit of barbecue. Green peas.
He was, from, I think from the, I'd have to get some other WA to, WA's in genealogy. He's gonna talk to us a little bit. Do you know Harry Miller in California? He is a Tinney